Hello, Southeastern MBA students. Welcome to Problem Solving and Decision Making. This is Dr. Stuckey, and I have produced this series of videos as a companion to your course text, which is Practical Management Science. And what we are going to do in the videos is I'm going to select key examples from the course text each week, and I'm going to go through and show you how to do the problems, discuss some of the rationale behind where the inputs are coming from, discuss some of the common issues students run into when they are building the models. And my hope is that these videos help you to get through this course more easily. So the first one that I'm going to start with is in Chapter 2, and it is section 2.3, and the cost projections, and it's actually example 2.2, which is projecting the cost of bookshelves at Woodworks. And you can find the file at bookshelfcost.xlsx is the name, and you can find that in your student resources. So go ahead and pull that up, and I will show you how to build this model. So basically, the purpose of this model is that the owner of the company, or whoever is managing the company, wants to know how much it's going to cost to produce each type of bookshelf, the bookshelves out of cherry wood and the bookshelves out of oak wood, for the next 6 years. Okay? So what they have given us in the inputs is how many feet are required for cherry boards and oak boards for each type of bookshelf, how many labor hours are required to assemble each bookshelf, and what the projected increase is for each type of wood per year, and what the projected annual increase in labor is for each year. And then they've given us the framework for a chart. And so the first one we are going to calculate is now. This one is going to be a little bit different than the others, so we're going to build it, then we're going to build year one, and then we'll be able to copy and paste year one down through the next 6 years as long as we build it right. So let's go ahead and build year one. So you're going to go to cell B19, which is the cost of cherry per board foot currently. And that's just a cell reference. You are going to reference the number in cell B9 because that is where it tells you the cost of cherry. Now, if you were looking at this in a real life situation, you would find the cost of the wood from your suppliers. Okay, and then we can just copy and paste this over. Excel is really smart if you haven't worked in it a lot before. Unless you tell it otherwise, it assumes that when you copy a cell that has a formula in it, you want all of the numbers in the formula to adjust. Now, that might not always be the case for you, and so if it's not, you're going to use something called an absolute value, which we will get into in a minute. But as you can see, we entered cell B9 into cell B19, and it returned that value of $5.50. And when we copied that number to cell C19, instead of referring to B19 as it did in this column, it went over a column because we copied it over a column, and it refers to cell C9, so $4.30. So those are correct. We are going to now reference cell C13. That is the cost of labor. If you're, again, wondering where you would get that number in real life, you would look at how much you are paying per hour for labor for your company, whether you're contracting that or hiring your employees. Especially if you're hiring your own employees, don't just look at their hourly rate for labor, because their hourly rate does not necessarily include all the costs to you of their labor. You may be paying benefits, you are paying taxes on top of their hourly rate. So if you just look at their hourly rate, your numbers are going to be off. All right, now we are going to calculate the cost per bookshelf. And we're going to do that by, first, we're going to start the formula with an equals, because you start every formula in Excel with an equals. That is its signal to start a formula. And then there's two components here. We have to look at the cost of the wood and the cost of the labor. So to calculate the cost of the wood, we are going to reference cell B19, which is the cost of the wood for that year, and we are going to multiply that. The multiplication signal is that star in Excel, you're going to multiply the cost of the cherry per board by the number of board feet that is used in that bookshelf. Okay, and then you are going to add the cost of the labor to produce the bookshelf. So you're going to go ahead and go to D19, which is the labor cost for that year, and multiply that by the number of labor hours required. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're going to copy and paste this over, but I intentionally made some errors in not using absolute values because I wanted you to see what happened if you didn't use absolute values. I used none, and my $461 to produce that cherry bookshelf is correct. However, based on that calculation, when I copy it over, it's going to cost me $7,505 to produce an oak bookshelf. That number is very, very incorrect, and that is because there is an error in the absolute values in this first formula. So here's the error right here. Actually, let me go ahead and put this back so I can show you. So this one is referring to D19, which is correct, which is the cost per labor hour, or the cost per hour for the labor. When you come over here, because we didn't make D19 any kind of absolute value, now it's referring to E19, which is actually on your spreadsheet, it's the cost of the cherry bookshelf. So it's factoring in that your labor costs you $461 an hour, which is very incorrect. So we fix that by going back here and making it an absolute value. Absolute values can be done in a couple different ways. First of all, you can do an absolute value by making both the column and the row an absolute value. So if you do that, it doesn't matter where you copy and paste the formula on Excel, it will always, 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 always refer back to that one cell. You can also just make the column an absolute value. And if you do that, you can copy and paste the cell down rows, and the row will shift up the cell, but the column will never shift. And you can also just do the row and let the column shift as you copy and paste. So let me show you how that works. If you're going to do the entire thing as an absolute value, you put a $sign in front of the row and the column. You can also just press F4. However, if you want one of them to be able to shift but not another one, you put a $sign only in front of the one that you do not want to shift. You can also, again, just press F4 again. So the first time you press F4, it does both. The second time you press F4, it will do just the row. In this case, we want the row to be able to shift, right? As we copy and paste this down, we want the row to be able to shift. What we don't want to have shifted is the column on this one. Now, there are some other absolute value mistakes here that they haven't bit us yet because we've copied and pasted across columns, but we haven't copied and pasted across rows. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about how to fix those now before we copy and paste this again. So first of all, you want the column to be able to shift in when you're calculating the number of feet required, so that you can copy from cherry to oak, but you don't want the row to shift, so as you go down, you're referring to the wrong cell. So you want to go ahead and make that row an absolute value. Again, you can just put the $sign in front of the row. And it's the same thing over here on B6 when you're looking at the number of labor hours required. You want to be able to copy it over to the oak bookshelf, but you don't want this to go down a row as that information is being copied and pasted. So you go ahead and put that absolute value there, and you can copy and paste this over to the next column and get $425, which is correct. Now, we have to calculate the percent increase here. Again, I'm going to show it to you wrong because I'm going to make the mistake that a lot of students make up front, and that is this. They take the number and multiply it by the percent change. So that's all they would do. Press enter and get 13 cents. Now, let's think about this logically. We started at $5.50. We increased, not decreased, but increased by 2.4%. On no level does it make sense that our new cost is $1. What does make sense is what we calculated, that we have a 13 cent increase over the price from the year before, which is correct. But it is, what they're actually looking here is not how much, they're not looking for the number of cents that it increased. They are looking for the new total. And so the easiest way to do that new total is to do some parentheses and do 1 plus the projected annual increase. And again, we've got to get our absolute values done here. So in this case, we want the column to shift as we copy and paste, but not the row. So I'm going to do F4. So first time I press F4, it does both. The second time, it does the row. So we can leave it there. Okay, and then go ahead, press enter, and we should be able, $5.63 is correct, and we should be able to copy and paste that over to the next one. Now we're going to do the number of labor hours. So we're going to take the labor hours from year 0, multiply that by the projected annual increase of 1.5%. Remember, you can't just do 1.5%. It is 1 plus 1.5%. And let's get our absolute value right here. So again, we don't want the row to shift, so you're going to put that $sign in front of the 14 there. Okay. Now, we should be able to just copy and paste these two down if we have done our work correctly, and it looks like we have. Now, the rest of it is easy. So if you've gotten all your absolute values right, and you've gotten all your formulas in correctly, you can now just copy and paste this down. And you can see that in year 6, it's going to cost the company $513.89 and $466.39 respectively to produce cherry and oak bookshelves. All right, now why do we use cell references? Why did I use a cell reference here when I was calculating the projected increase instead of just typing in the reference? Well, first of all, this allows your managers or others who are checking your model to see what numbers you based that on, and it's very clear. Secondly, what if now instead of expecting a 2.4% increase, we are expecting a 4.8% increase and a 3.4% increase. I literally changed my entire table down here by pressing or changing the inputs in 2 cells. What can happen is if you don't have these tied incorrectly, you are not going to be able to use Solver in future weeks adequately, and it looks like you've based it on 4.8% and 3.4% when you still have all of the old numbers plugged into your cells. So it is important that you list all of your inputs to your models and that you reference those inputs in your formulas and you don't just type in numbers. You cannot pass this class just typing in numbers and cells. You've got to use your inputs in your model correctly. All right. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please call me, email me. I'm available to you. I'm available to help you. I want to see you do well in this class. Hope you have a great evening and God bless.